Okay, so we've got the Unifi US8 60-watt switch, which will be replacing my current Netgear GS108. I'll also be using the Unifi UAP AC light. That will be providing the Wi-Fi. Let's go and take a look at my current setup. Going to take a look. Okay, so as you can see, it's not a very large loft space. The RJ45 cables that I've got going down to wall mount sockets are nicely pinned against the rafters there. So this is my current setup. I've got the Netgear GS8 108 just here, and a TP-Link WD40 I think, but anyway, I'll put it in the description below or pop it up on the screen just here or somewhere later. But also I have this Raspberry Pi that has been running for literally years now, since we built this garage space, or since we converted the garage space. It's actually running FlightAware, as you can see just there. So that's actually hardwired back to the house, back to the main switch. In my garden I've actually got 3 of these big thick Cat6 cables so they go back through this partition here and then down, out underground, back to the main house, where so where this FlightAware is actually plugged directly into that. So I've actually got 3 Cat6 cables that come from the house, and previously I think this Netgear switch didn't actually support link aggregation. So at the moment I've used the 3 cables independently and then running different things. So I've got an uplink from this switch to the main switch. I'm obviously using one to feed the FlightAware system just here. I think one is being used to power my security camera, my infrared camera that's mounted to the front of the garage, which is in that direction. So the plan is today is to install the wireless router, so the Unifi UAP AC light. That will be mounted just below this area here, so sort of like my spare desk where my brother comes around and uses that sometimes, and generally where I put loads of other sort of video equipment and things as a temporary sort of storage area. The idea is to mount the access point just below this board here space. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'll remove all this stuff. We'll lift up some of the insulation. We'll find a suitable location. Hopefully I'm going to be looking to place it near one of these rafters, so that obviously the Cat6 cable, because we will be using power over Ethernet, I want to make sure that it's not likely to get very hot and therefore potentially cause problems against the insulation. Okay guys, so I've now got the floorboards up in the loft space here. So it actually looks a pretty good setup. I've actually got some joists here that actually meet up, which I think I'm going to try and utilise to bring the Cat6 power over Ethernet cable down, or the Cat6 cable down through the loft space. So I'm going to try and measure out, so from the corner here of this loft hatch, I'm going to measure out the distance, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill from the other side, the main hole where the Cat6 cable will actually drop down through the loft, and then from that we can then line up the mounting brackets and then work out where we need to put the screw holes through. One tape measure. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tape measure, and I'm going to use this corner here as a reference, so that when I get to the underneath, to the underside of my ceiling, I can work out where I need to put that hole. So I'm just going to measure that out now. So it's roughly 31 inches from the corner here to that joist, and then it's roughly 11 from the corner just here to where I want to be drilling the hole. So I'm now going to go down, I'll put the hole through, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're about right. So we're about three inches from the side there. So I think I'm just going to move it another 3 inches that way, then I'll just fill the ceiling and it's no big deal. Okay, so second attempt is pretty good. It's literally right in that corner. What we're going to do now is we're going to actually put this plate so we can work out exactly where we need to put our main hole for our access point. Okay, so the top mounting bracket is now in the loft space and is sitting against the plasterboard. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to check the configuration of the actual mounting bracket itself, which the Unifi UAP AC light attaches to. I want to make sure that the actual Unifi logo looks good from ground level. So that's pretty much where I want it to be. It means that the Cat6 cable will be attached with cable clips above here, and then we'll then drop down, avoiding the insulation in this area here, and then should then be able to go through and connect to the access point. Let's go and take a look downstairs. Okay, so that's pretty much going to sit like that, and then we can feed the screws up and then attach the bolts to the other side. Excellent. So they've actually just stayed in place due to the friction of the 4mm hole that I've drilled. Probably the plaster from the plasterboard's holding it in there. As you can see, when we actually place the access point on, we'll actually hide those holes I made a slight mistake on. So there we go. So when it's actually mounted, it will look like that. As you can see, none of the test holes are visible. Anyway, let's now go and put these nuts on the other side. Okay, so I've got all the bolts down. They've actually got like a spring washer kind of thing at the bottom. So now they've actually made contact with the plate, we should be able to screw up from underneath and we should tighten this down. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So now what we need to do is we need to mark out where we're going to put the hole. So the hole is essentially for the Cat6 cable to drop into this space here. Once it drops into this space, it'll then be connected into the RJ45 port just there. So essentially, the metal bracket has that sort of flat side. So that is where it recommends that you actually drill the hole for the cable to drop down. So I'm going to go up into the loft space again, and I'm going to use the drill. I'm going to drill down. We'll use a small drill bit because if we're drilling from the other side, it'll probably splinter from this side. So we use a small drill bit to come down through the ceiling. Once we know where it is, we'll then use the larger drill bit to go up through the hole, and thus any splintering will happen in the loft space. Okay, so the hole is now drilled, the cable is nicely positioned against this joist, so I can now use a cable clip and clip it into place there, and then we're going to go across these joists here and back to the switch. What I'll do initially is I'm just going to loosely tack it in place, because when we put the access point on, we may need to bring up some of the slack. I'm just going to route the rest of this Cat6 cable along the rafters, like I've done with my Cat5e cable when I originally wired this place in about 3 years ago. Okay, so we've now got the Cat6 cable in place, coming along there. With a bit of slack there just so we can pull it through when we attach the access point. So it's coming along this joist, and then it's coming down the rafters there, and then it's coming down, joins this joist, comes across where it will then go and be terminated where the new switch will be placed. So I'm going to terminate this cable now, I think, and once I'm done with that, I'm going to get the switch mounted on a new board there and replace the old one. So what I'm now going to do is I've taken the outer sheath off this Cat6 cable, and what I'm going to do is, although I am yet still to install a little patch panel in here, which I will do soon, I basically need to get all of this stuff sorted before the weekend, so especially for the purposes of the video. So strip these wires back like so. And now what we need to do is we need to remove the central divider. This is part of the Cat6 specification. It's to insulate against RF bleed and signal bleed from these twisted pair cables. So I'm just going to use some scissors, drop that as close as possible, making sure that I don't nick the side of these little cables in here. So the next thing we need to do is we need to actually straighten these out. So I'm just going to untwist them like so, and then use my finger to run them down. Use between my thumb and my index finger, press hard and then pull down, and then as you can see, this now straightens out really nicely. So I'm going to repeat this process now for the other 3 pairs. Okay, so the next part is to make sure that we've got each of the wires in the right order. So there are 2 main wiring specifications or types for Cat6 cable. Personally, I like to use the first variation, so we're going to start off with, or this will be reversed obviously in video, but essentially this is the RJ45 plug, it's right here, and what we want to do is we want to basically start off from this side, and we're going pins 1 to pin 8. So pin 1 in the certain specification that I'm using will be white orange, followed by orange, followed by white green, followed by blue white, followed by green, followed by white brown, followed by brown. So we're now going to try and get these in order, and with that we should then be able to attempt to put this inside the RJ45 plug here. Okay, so that's the cable completed and punched down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use a cable tester. Obviously this particular Cat6 cable will be powering up the access point using power over Ethernet. So I'm going to use a quick cable tester just to make sure that there's no broken cables in here, and specifically that all of the cables are correctly aligned and that they check out 1 to 8 correctly. Bear with me. It was here all along. So this is a network cable tester, so it can test both RJ11 and RJ45 cables, or the RJ45 connectors. So basically category 6 cable generally uses RJ45. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this piece off. I'm going to go and attach this to the other end where the access point connects to, and I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so with the other end of this attached to the other end of this Cat6 cable, we can now plug this into our cable tester like so. We can then turn this switch to on, and then if all goes well, the LED should run down in order, and we shouldn't get any duplicate light ups, which essentially means that each of the wires inside the cable are correctly attached, and there's no sort of cross-wired or essentially short circuits. So if we go and look at the other end of the cable tester, I'll go and show you how we attach that and how that looks. So this is where our Cat6 cable comes out from the ceiling when we attached our mounting plate, and as you can see, this also runs through the same series, so it needs the other end attached obviously to get the circuit working. But the cable appears to be okay. There seems to be no cross wires or short circuits in the cable. So now really guys, the only thing for us to do is to actually attach the Unifi access point. We'll mount the switch up there and test the whole system out. That's the access point now mounted. As you can see, some of the holes that I originally drilled are now completely hidden by the access point, which is good. So now really just a case of mounting the new network switch and connecting it all up and giving it a go. Okay, so the next job that I want to do is I want to cut out another piece of plywood to mount the switch and the power adapter on. So 10 by 14. Now it's going to disconnect all the equipment as it's no longer needed. The old switch. The old wireless access point there. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, I have three Cat6 cables, external grade cable that comes from underground. So this is actually those 3 cables right there. So I've got one that comes off here and goes straight into my FlightAware Pi, and then these 2 here, so 1 and 2, will actually be set up in the switch using link aggregation, so we get a maximum throughput of 2 gigabits. All these cables here will come from my RJ45 wall socket jacks, so I'll be reconnecting those to the switch, and then we'll be working out which VLANs to put them on. So the majority of the VLANs that I intend to use, all of them will be on the standard LAN, with the exception of one socket, which will be over in my test bench area, which is just sort of down there. And that will be on the test VLAN, so that basically segregates that particular network from the rest of my home network, so I can do things like test outside site VPNs, even though I'm actually in the same physical location, which funnily enough is in an upcoming video. So we'll be doing a site-to-site VPN with Raspberry Pis, so if you're interested in that, do like the video and subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss that episode. I'm now going to go and chop up the plywood and make sure that it fits nicely, and then we'll mount the new switch in the power supply. Okay guys, so now I've got the board ready. So the switch is actually mounted on this bit of recycled plywood here, and I've got the power cable coming through a hole in the back just up here, and I've created this space here for the Cat6 cables and Cat5 cables that go from my wall jacks. So the idea is I'm going to mount this over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this old support, and I'm going to actually mount it to this joist just here. Okay, so now I've got that nicely in place, I can now mount the plywood which holds the switch, like so. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the Cat6 cables through this hole and we'll connect them to the switch. Okay, so these 2 cables come from the house and provide the port aggregation, giving us 2 gigabytes of transfer between this switch and the main switch that's in the house. Okay guys, so it's now installed, it's done. So I've got the plywood that I've recycled here. The switch is now mounted. I've got the cables coming in through the back of the plywood. Mounted the power supply unit on here so it keeps away from any of the insulation. So that's cable tied. I've drilled some holes through the back of the plywood and cable tied it through there. I've also added this little piece of plastic above here, which I'm hoping, just in case condensation or something drops down from the felt here, it should hopefully deflect it away from the actual unit itself. Rather happy with it. It's now been running online so for about 2 to 3 hours. I've been checking the temperatures of the cables and the power supply unit. All seem perfectly fine. This unit apparently does run rather hot, so I was concerned about that. So I'm going to keep a close eye on that over the next sort of 48 hours. Make sure I don't need to take some drastic action, maybe move the location of this switch. But I'm super happy with it. Had to, as you can see, I've got one cable that hasn't actually been plugged in because I've actually run out of ports, because I want to use these 2 ports here for link aggregation back to the main switch in the house. But apart from that, all my devices are working. So yeah, so I'm actually super happy with how it's turned out. This piece of plastic, I'm hoping, will protect against any potential leaks from the roof. Not that I think there is any, or there has ever been. I do come up here quite a lot, and obviously my old equipment was running here just fine without any sort of cover on. So yeah, I'm super happy with that. As you can see, the cable comes across here now. I've clipped it in a bit more. So this is the Cat6 cable, carrying the power over Ethernet as well for the UAP AC Pro. Anyway, I'm going to go downstairs and we'll show you the access point. And there she is. I think it looks really good. As you can see, can't see those holes which I put test holes in earlier, so that's all looking great. The blue light, I'll probably disable that because I don't really want that on all the time. But yeah, so I'm now just going to close the loft now, turn off the light up there, and I have been tidying up, so I've been hoovering around. I need to put the step ladder back in the other part of the garage. But yeah, I'm really liking it. That's a quick look at what I've got on my desk and desk setup. As you probably saw from the last video, I set those new sound panels up just over there. So anyway guys, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more content like this. Many more videos coming soon. So if you're interested in networking, software engineering, development, playing around with Raspberry Pis, camera equipment, general tips and tricks with awesome home garage stuff, or awesome man cave stuff, then please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next one.